Well, we got our first guest. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for asking. Are you a Christian?
Yes.
Do you think that the biblical God is all good?
How are you defining good?
Well, my definition of good is based on does he always do good things? So, for example, can a person be all good if they do things that are not good?
Well, God's not a person, so again, how are you applying good to a?
Well, according to the Trinity, he's three persons in one. So,
does that make him good? Again, you're not defining good. So
I just did. You asked me to define person. You said you didn't understand, or you didn't like my phrasing of person, but my phrasing of person is in line with Christianity. So, good is what does he do? Are his actions good? Yes or no?
Good? That's a circular argument. What's the definition of good?
I'm asking you. It's a simple yes or no. Does everything he does good? Yes or no?
Also, I don't know how it's circular when you are the one that is making the claim that your deity is all good. So I don't know why it is so hard for you to understand or grasp the question. So if you could please unmute and actually answer, that would be great. Because we literally have someone in chat that clearly just said yes. It wasn't hard for them. I don't know why it's hard for you.
I have to understand your claim first so I can make a claim. I haven't made a claim yet. So because you're asking the question, so what good am I comparing it to? So then I can say if he's good or not. Like how are you defining good? Are you saying that
I can define good about 100 different ways, but quite clearly, God isn't good according to even his own standard. He says that the shedding of innocent blood is among the 7 things that he detests, yet he does it all the time. He issues punishments for people who gRape women, assuming they're married. If they're not married, he doesn't care. Yet he causes that very same thing to happen.
Does he do the graping?
He causes it, yes.
How does he cause it?
He just tells you he does. Have you read the punishment that David gets in 2 Samuel chapter 12?
I'm sure I've read it at some point.
Yeah. What's the punishment that's handed out to David for what he did to Uriah the Hittite?
I don't recall. You have all the notes in front of you, so
we'll pull it up. I've got the Bible passage here. Thus saith the Lord, I will raise up trouble against you from within your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor. He will lie with your wives in broad daylight, for you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all of Israel in broad daylight.
So he's punishing somebody for doing something. Because if your punishment, David, is for me to take something from you and to give to someone else.
Yeah, he specifically causes 10 of David's wives to be graped in the ensuing chapters.
So the word grape wasn't used in that context at those times. If anything, it would be to force themselves upon somebody.
Which is gRape.
Well, hold on. If we take it in a sexual context, then yes, then that would be taken that way. But it could also be as simple as I said, taking of something and giving to someone else.
Yeah, so the issue here is the consent of the.
Where did it say it was sexually? Where did it say it was sexually oppressing somebody?
The issue here is the consent of the women.
So because he's telling them of the ramifications of their actions, he's causing that? Is that what your argument is?
No, he says he's causing it. He says, I will raise up trouble against you from within your own house, and I will take your wives. It's not voluntary.
But he's doing that because David did something to cause that action to happen, correct?
No, he's doing it to punish David.
Because he did something hidden, and he is now going to show him what it happens if it's done in full daylight. He's showing him the
precisely.
Ramifications of it. So wait a minute. So this is what it comes down to, from what I understand. You're wanting to say that God is not allowed to set a standard and give a justification or a ramification if somebody does something beyond his desires.
Not even
Maybe
close.
he should have done it to, and even if it's a lesson, he should have done it to the person responsible and not to the innocent women that were and had no involvement whatsoever on what he was doing. That's what you're not grasping, Mark.
It's not about whether David. It's not about whether David
words.
should be punished. It's about why the punishment falls on the women.
So is it? Well, again, you're assuming you're.
Thank you, Sarah. Good to see you, Sarah. Y'all, we got a nice deconstructionist in the house. Make sure you're dropping Sarah a follow. Sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
You're taking the word "grape" from today's standard and understanding, and then applying it to something that wasn't.
What's the biblical understanding of it?
Well, I don't see the word rape in the context of you're talking about. It's nowhere in there. And
You're saying grape for a reason.
Yeah. Did the women consent
to be taken as new brides? I have no idea.
That's not what happened.
We don't know that.
The women didn't consent. If you just read further in the story, Absalom takes 10 of David's wives and he sleeps with them on the top of the palace and all of them in broad daylight as a show of power over his father.
Okay, so you're upset because God allowed that to happen?
No, God said he's causing it to happen. I will raise up trouble against you. I don't know why I have to read that 10 times.
So let me ask you, do you have children?
I do, yes.
So if your children do something and you tell them not to do it, and then there's a ramification of that, did you cause that to happen because you ended up making your children, or were there consequences for it?
Is the ramification, if my child does something I tell him not to do, and my punishment for that child is to make him watch me beat up his sibling, am I responsible for the horrors that I just put on top of both of them?
Are you responsible, or are you again?
Yes. Who's choosing the punishment?
Well, you are.
Thank you. Yes. So making somebody who didn't commit the crime suffer for the crime is injustice.
So by that standard, then you probably don't discipline your children, I'm assuming.
Not even close. We'll try this. We'll try this one more time, Mark. Who committed the sin?
David.
Who's they?
David and his family.
Oh, I heard they. Okay, David did. Yes, of course. David committed the sin, right? Did David's wives commit the sin?
We're assuming so because they're lumped into.
Incorrect. We'll try this again. Who committed the crime against Uriah the Hittite?
As what you're saying, we're assuming that it's just David. You're assuming
who committed the crime against Uriah the Hittite.
In that story, I don't know the full story of that. So
I know these Christians never read the Bible. The crime was against Uriah the Hittite. David committed that crime, not David's wives. The fact that David's newly born child gets punished and then 10 of his wives get punished is ridiculous.
Why do you think that happens?
Because God is a monster.
Okay. Could it be that God is trying to stop generational curse and sin from moving forward from within that family line?
Could God not punish David without harming his wives?
How would David's children learn from that?
David's children were already adults when this happened. We're talking about the child that he had with Bathsheba, and God offed that child, so that's irrelevant.
Well, even him offing that child for the child that he had with Bathsheba, was he wrong for doing that as well?
I would say so, yes. That's the shedding of innocent blood that violates his own principle.
So in that same regard, if we bring it to current terms, I'm assuming that you're pro-life then as well.
I don't really have a political stance.
No, but personally speaking, you must be pro-life then as well too. If you're worried.
Personally speaking, I don't have a stance.
He wants to talk about personally speaking. I'll personally speak. You, sir, need to stay away from children. You need to stay away from women, and you need to be put under constant surveillance by not only the Federal Bureau of Investigations, but also the CIA, because your thought processes is so disgusting
No, I'm looking for
and unbelievable The fact that you're even arguing for this deity doing these things and saying that, oh, this is a lesson. It's not a lesson to the Malakis women, because guess what? The women didn't do shit. The man did. So you siding with this deity, I'm not done. I am not done. So you siding with this deity, punishing the innocents for the crimes and deeds of the actual person, goes to show that you are no better than this deity. If not, you're probably just as worse, because we can actually see and hear you. You need to be looked at. Seriously need to be looked at. You are sick.
So in psychology, if you're triggered by a question and not a statement, that means you're coming over your own trauma.
Mark, we don't really need your meta-analysis here. We're trying to figure out whether or not...
I actually don't have trauma. Don't assume, princess.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out whether or not it's okay to punish David's wives for David's sin.
Right. And did they sin too is what I was asking. Did they sin too?
Find me in the text where they sinned.
How do you know that? Where is that?
Because they didn't sin anywhere in the text. And Nathan, when he corrects...
Again, I don't know the scripture that you're referring to.
Nathan, when he corrects David, clearly says that it's his sin. The very beginning of chapter 12. It's very clear. God says, because you have done this, I will raise up trouble against you. Thank you, Chevy. I appreciate the eyes. It's quite clear. God is using his wives as an instrument of punishment. Because women's consent never matters to God.
So, have you read the book of Exodus?
I've read every book in the Bible.
So what's the book of Exodus about?
Book of Exodus is obviously about the Exodus, a little bit about the desert wandering and the preparation to go into the promised land, which they had to wait 40 years for.
So there are slaves being set free.
Yeah, This is a kind of a big pivot. You want to talk about slavery next?
Right. No. So again, I'm looking. It's not a pivot. I'm looking for a consistency in your argument.
I'd love to talk about slavery next.
But why would, if he wanted slavery, why did he set them free?
Because he doesn't want his people to be slaves, but he's okay with his people owning other people as slaves. You want me to show you where he just says it?
So again, why are we taking today's terms and applying them to the past?
I'll just answer the question for you. Yes, you do want me to show you that. Let's read Leviticus 25. It says, as for the male and female slaves who you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from among the aliens residing with you and from their families who are with you, who have been born into your land. They may be your property. You may keep them as a possession for your children after you forever, for them to inherit as property. There you go.
Okay, so again, you are not aware of that we looked at, or they looked at slavery at that point as indentured servitude and people that were in debt. And do you know
that indentured servitude was for 6 years and not for life?
Well, some people, just like we had people who left slavery when slavery was abolished, who chose to still live under those terms.
That's not what we're talking about.
But I'm asking a question again. I'm not making a statement. I'm asking a question. Do you think that there were people who, again, even the slaves in Exodus said, we'd rather go back than have to endure, doing this on our own?
Yeah, because they thought they were going to die in the desert. They would rather be slaves than to die in the desert. I think if your only two options are to serve somebody else or to die, most people would rather stay alive. But that being said,
I would rather die than be owned by someone else.
Yeah, but if you just read the book of Exodus, it's actually quite clear that they weren't literally owned as slaves. They were forced labor. They were korban.
So, right. And again, I'm asking questions. I'm trying to understand your viewpoint of where you come up with this avatar that the rule giver has to live by the same rules, be applied by the same rules.
Thank you, Superstar. So you don't think objective morals exist?
No, I think that they do, but I don't think that the person who uses the rules has to live by the same rules.
Well, if morals are objective, then they are objective, meaning they're not dependent upon who's doing the action. They're always good or always bad. Thank
So
you, Gabs.
everything that you allow your children to do, or don't allow your children to do, you don't do as well yourself. You have no superiority. You're just as evil or as even as your parent. Your children can talk to you like they would talk to an adult, and vice versa. There's no objective that they have to, a standard and respect that they have to give you. They can come to you, and if you don't do something that they like, they can tell you to go F off, and you're like, okay. And you take that as it is. You don't want to be put at a certain level of respect or standard yourself.
Not at all. So the limits we place on our children are there to protect them. The limits that God places on people in the Bible are the opposite of that. God says you can own slaves. God says you can grape somebody as long as they're not engaged or married to someone else. God says it's okay to punish the innocent. These aren't like moral standards that like God is limiting our decisions to protect us. These are moral standards that God is using to harm us.
But he again set those people free. If you said you read the whole Bible, then you understand even in the New Testament where
Who did he set free, Mark? Did he set free the Israelites or every slave in the planet?
I believe he set everybody free, and what we chose to do with that.
Oh, that's not true at all. Please show me in the Bible where he set every slave in the world free.
John 3:16.
Incorrect. Show me in the Bible where he set actual physical slaves free that were not his people.
John 3:16.
Thank you, Megan, for the
John
666 on Cash App.
3:16 doesn't say that. I'm talking about people who are actually slaves. They're owned by a human being as though they are property. Show me that verse.
Well, let me help you out here. Do you control your children?
I don't know.
Why?
Because I see no need to. That would be unproductive.
Right. And you love them, hopefully, correct?
Obviously.
Right. So if you love them, you don't control them.
So
And
now
what
we're
you-
just going to pivot to a free will
I'm not
conversation
pivoting.
now that you got cooked on slavery. Let's
not
not
pivoting.
pivot here, Mark. Is
not
slavery ever good?
No.
Okay. Is slavery objectively immoral? Thank you, Ken Mom.
By today's standards, yes.
I said objectively. Is slavery objectively immoral?
That word has changed now many times over
What's
thousands.
changed?
Because again, at one point it was indentured servitude. And
We're not
considered-
talking. Thank you, Joyful, for the jelly. But we're not talking about indentured servitude. Did you hear what I just read from the Bible? It says you can own these people as a possession for your children after you forever, for them to inherit as property. That is, by definition, not indentured servitude.
Well, if someone worked for me and they were paying off a debt, and then
Just
I died.
didn't
Hold
say
on.
anything about a debt.
Why won't you let me finish the sentence?
Because
And
you
then-
keep
and I
lying,
died-
Mark.
You're asking me a question. I'm trying to give you an
Address the
answer.
passage I
I'm
read.
trying to address it. If
Does the
someone worked
passage
for
say
me-
anything about debt?
We don't know that. You're reading this again from today's mindset of what
I'm
slavery-
not.
Well, you are.
Not at
Because
all.
If you knew anything about historical,
I know
that there was
everything-
indentured servitude.
I know everything about historical biblical slavery. I've read
Yeah,
nearly
yeah.
every book on the topic. So please show me in Leviticus 25 where it says they get to go free when they pay off their debt.
Again, I can't jump off of a live off my phone right now to do that. I don't have access.
It's not in there.
Okay. So what was considered indentured servitude back in?
You serve for 6 years. You go free in the 7th year. That's Exodus 21 verses 1 through 7.
Okay. And what happens if that's not paid off? What happens to that indentured servant? What happens?
It doesn't
to them?
matter. You go free. You go free in the 7th year, no matter what your debt was.
What if I died and that person was indebted to me? What would happen to them? They would be passed on.
Nope,
Where do you know that?
because it's nowhere in the Bible. Now you're making things up.
No, you got to look at the historical context again of how people were treated back then.
No, you're
That's
just
what you're not-
making
you
things
don't
up,
like
Mark.
it. No.
Mark, you're making things up. Even the Jewish rabbis
Okay.
who commented on the Exodus indentured servitude clearly stated that if your slave owner died before your debt was paid off, or the slave died before the debt was paid off, it all became a wash. You can't then go and take somebody's other family members.
Okay. So if all that you're saying is true, how does that make God again not good?
Oh,
Because his
easy,
people
because you and I both agreed that slavery was bad. Do we agree on this?
Again, by today's standard of slavery, yes.
No, I'm asking you, is it objectively bad to own another human being as property?
I have employees. Am I a slave owner?
No. Your employees
Okay.
get paid and they can voluntarily leave. They interviewed for that position.
That's correct, but some people feel, in today's terminology, they feel slaves to their work as well too. So I'm just trying to understand again the words that you're
Yeah,
using.
but now you're just trying to avoid the actual topic at hand. Employees are not slaves. The Hebrew language has a word for employees. It's shakir, and shakirs are not evids. Evids do not get paid. They don't get to go free.
Okay, so by today's standard, again, slavery is wrong. Correct. It's objectively
No,
wrong.
incorrect by the definition that you provided. Let's just give a definition of slavery since you seem to be confused. What is the definition? Mark, what is the definition of slavery?
Forced labor.
It's owning another human being as property and they don't have the decision to go free and they don't have autonomy, correct?
I just said forced labor and correct and forcing your will on somebody and to the point of ownership. Correct.
To the point of ownership, and then if they don't listen, you can beat them, right?
I guess if that's what that's what
I
people
mean,
did. To
you can
slaves.
discipline them some way or another.
Yes, that would be considered slavery, and that would be objectively wrong.
Cool, awesome. That would be objectively wrong. So I'll read Leviticus 25 a second time, show you that God says you can own slaves. As for the male and female slaves who you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from among the aliens residing with you and from their families who are with you, who have been born in your land. They may be your property. You may keep them as a possession for your children after you forever, for them to inherit as property. That's slavery.
So, as I asked you before, with your own children, are they allowed to set the rules of how you raise them, or do you set the rules?
Actually, Mark, address the passage I read. Stop pivoting.
No, that's slavery. No, I agree with
Thank
you. I'm
you.
not
That
pivoting.
is slavery. Fantastic. So we can agree then that slavery is objectively wrong and that your God endorsed it. So by definition, your God is not good.
So, does that mean you're a good father?
That has nothing to do with whether or not I'm a good father. I don't endorse slavery.
But I'm trying to get consistent on your moral belief. Do your children get to set the rules in which you give them and govern them under, or do you, again, are you the only you
I
yourself?
set rules. I put rules into
Do
place.
they get to set rules?
I put limitations into place in order to protect my children. Slavery is not a protection of anybody.
Is it again? I don't
know why this is so hard.
No, it's not hard. I don't focus on the Old Testament God. I focus on the New Testament. I focus on Jesus.
It's the same God.
No, there's a different perception.
Is God the Father God?
Yes,
Okay, we'll call him Yahweh, right?
if you choose to.
I mean, that's his name in the book.
Okay, so where are you
Okay,
going?
so the Father is God. Are you aware that it's the same God in both testaments?
I think it's a different reflection of him. I think it's more of understanding the heart than of God versus the disciplinary side.
Is it the same God, though?
In some respects, yes.
No, it is. You can't be a monotheist if you believe in multiple gods.
Okay, so I'm answering all your questions. Why aren't you answering mine? Do your children get to make rules?
I've answered it 3 times. My children have Thank you, Joyful. My children have limitations
When
placed
Joyful?
upon them to
So no, they
keep
don't.
them.
Okay, hold on, let me
to
take over
keep,
now. So they
to
don't.
keep
So
them.
God can't protect
Mark,
other people and put.
My children have limitations in order to keep them safe. Telling people that you can own slaves or you can gRape people, those are not limitations to keep anybody safe.
So again, God could not have said,
Thank you, Lady Tammy.
So again, God could not have said, I'm putting you under slavery to protect you.
Who's being protected by slavery?
Maybe the slaves were being protected.
Would you want to be protected through slavery?
Do your parents, do your children get to choose how
Do you want to be protected through slavery, Mark?
If God saw that was what I needed, then yes.
What are you being protected from?
Other people that might actually truly be trying to hurt me.
From other people that might enslave you?
Well, by again, a different definition of slavery at that time, then yes.
Is God all powerful?
Yes.
Do you think that this is his only means of protecting people, to force them into slavery where they have no autonomy and they get beaten if they disobey?
I don't know. I don't understand all of God's ways. I don't put myself on his level.
Oh, of course. Yeah, your God is illogical once we start probing the depths of his morality, I'm sure.
Well, now, again, this is why I keep going back to you having your own children, saying your children don't set the standard. You choose.
What is your obsession with people and their kids? You must not be mentally well.
No, I don't want to.
You need to stay away from playgrounds. That's what you need to do, because you keep going back to children and him being a potter. What is your issue? What does this have to do with the Malakas text?
It's about being a creator and understanding that sometimes you do things that are beyond your children's understandings and their ways.
Yeah, and why do I do that?
That are hurting them are meant
Mark,
to help
why do I do that? Why do I place restrictions on my children, Mark?
Well, you would do it because you love them and you don't want to control them.
Yes, because I love them and I want them to be safe and protected, right?
Because you love them and you don't want to control them.
It had nothing to do with control. It's about wanting to protect them.
Right. So again, maybe he put people in a situation to protect them from something greater than the evil that you think is slavery.
What's the evil that these people are being protected from?
So now I don't know that. I don't.
Now you're just making up crazy. You're just making up crazy scenarios. Well, if I dream up this scenario, I can make the slavery sound justified. Was it justified when we took the people from Africa and enslaved them and said, well, it's okay because we're going to make them read the Bible and we're going to convert them to Christianity and they'll no longer be heathens. They're better off here. Is that a good justification that we were protecting them from their own pagan religion?
I think the British and the Portuguese were terrible for doing that to
No, but we were protecting them, Mark. We were taking them here and we were giving them a shot at eternal life.
Well, that's what you say, but that's not what they said. They were looking truly for labor and they were truly looking to colonize a country.
I know, and we protected them. Rather than being pagan over in their continent, we brought them over here, we converted them to Christianity, and we de-heathenized them, so we protected them. Slavery should still be legal in America.
Apparently you've never been overseas. In Africa, specifically, since you brought up slavery, and I lived in Lagos for 6.5 years, it was terrible. And they thought, for whatever reason, they were trying to colonize and do better. Whether right, wrong, or indifferent, they might have had that mentality. It doesn't mean it's right, and it doesn't mean it's wrong that they thought they were helping people.
Oh, so slavery doesn't protect anybody, does it?
Again, some people would say, I would rather, again, when slavery was abolished in the United States, some stayed in that situation because they didn't want to go and be on their own, and they didn't feel that they had an opportunity to. So for them, slavery would have been good.
Okay, so then to just say that biblical slavery is good and slavery in the South was good, just say it.
It depends on the person who's experiencing it.
Just say it. Slavery should still be allowed.
No, we just talked about how in Exodus that they went back and wanted to go back because they thought they were going to get the provisions that they were looking for. They thought they were going to get the protection.
I know. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You're making
it's bad.
You're making
up to the person. That's
you're making the case, Mark, for why slavery should still be allowed. Should slavery be outlawed?
I keep telling you, Chad, got to put them on that watch list.
I'm making the case that it's under the person who's being to
Should it
suit,
be
if it should be allowed or
outlawed,
not.
Mark? Should it be outlawed? Yes or no?
Of course.
Why? He's just cooked himself.
Oh, 1,000%. Even his own deity, if he even exists, is telling him to shut the
Hello?
hell up.
Mark?
No, I've got a low signal right now, and I'm trying to figure out how to fix that. That's all it is.
That's right. Well, let's move on. Now that we know that God is pro-slavery and not against gRape, let's talk about Exodus 34:7. Have you read Exodus 34:7?
I'm sure at some point in my life I have.
Yeah, it says, God by no means clears the guilty, visits the iniquity of the parents upon the children and the children's children into the third and fourth generation. Do you think that your great-grandchildren should be punished if you commit a crime?
Of course not.
Why not?
It doesn't matter that's the whole point. It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what my creator thinks. It doesn't matter what I think.
Okay, so
I don't
if
think I'm on the same level of a creator.
Okay, so then we should be allowed
Not
to
that narcissistic.
we should be allowed to lock up 4 generations. If you commit a crime, your great-great-grandchildren should be locked up. His signal's going in and out.
Have you heard the phrase white privilege?
I'm quite aware of it. That's irrelevant. I'm asking you whether or not your great-great-grandchildren should be locked up if you commit a crime.
Oh, no.
Why not?
Because they're not guilty of that crime.
That's right. Yeah. So when God says, I'm going to punish the children and the children's children for the crimes of the parents, that is God being a monster, as I already said.
So again, the creator has the right to set the rules, not the creation.
I know. So if morality is objective, then that means it's okay to punish your great-great-grandchildren. So why do you have a problem with it?
Why? Because I'm human.
Oh, so objectively, it would be okay to do this then.
No, again, I'm human, so I have human characteristics.
No, I'm not asking you about your opinion. I'm asking you objectively, it must be okay to lock up children for the crimes of the parents because the Bible says so.
Well, at that time, I would think that he was, again, wiping the slate clean, and he was going back many different generations to make sure that he could have a pure line to start with. But again,
no, he's
I'm
going
not
forward.
God, so I don't understand.
He's not going backwards.
But
he's going
again,
forward.
I'm not God. But what I'm saying is he's trying to start afresh, start anew.
So
that's the only reason why you would do something that progressive.
Why would you do something that is unjust if you're trying to create a good people group?
Why would you start something unjust?
Why would you do something that is unjust if your goal is to create a people group that is good?
But again, you're setting yourself on the same standard, saying that it would be unjust, and I'm saying that you don't have that standard to do that.
But you already said it was unjust. We'll just try this again. Is it objectively just for your children all the way into the 4th generation to be locked up for your crimes?
No.
Okay, so that's a just thing to do. Finally, he's consistent. And this is why Christianity is nothing but red flags, because if you make them read the book, then they're committed to saying that gRape is okay, slavery is okay, genocide's okay, punishing great-grandchildren for the crimes of the great-grandparents is okay. This religion is a plague. All right, thanks for being here, Mark. We're going to get someone up here and probably cook them too.
Good luck to you, sir. God bless you.
Cheers.
Zeus bless you, you disgusting malakis. FBI, if you're watching, please check his laptop history. Maybe even check his basement. Make sure his wife
Yep.
and kids are
Thank you,
okay if he
Joyful.
even has any.